Beaten, bloody, and bruised. That's the U.S. vaping industry in 2018. Hard to believe, but the news keeps getting worse for vaping, and many industry watchers are convinced it's the result of an orchestrated attack. The first prong of the attack was launched early in the year when an alliance of progressive public health groups launched the Flavor Trap, a brazenly fallacious microsite assaulting the key ingredient which makes vaping the most effective tool to quit smoking. Next, the mainstream media cranked up the pressure with a nationwide fear campaign implicating the popular Juul vapor device with an increase in teen vaping, apparently driven by attractive flavors and cool packaging. The Food and Drug Administration responded to the hysteria with a crackdown on Juul Labs, and then launched an industry-wide action targeting retailers it claims to have caught selling vapor products to minors, and e-juice manufacturers that use bright colors, cartoons, and other packaging elements seemingly designed to market to kids. In lockstep, Google-owned YouTube began censoring vaping videos by longtime product reviewers, issuing channel strikes, and forcing many to delete some of their most popular videos. And finally, last week, congressional legislators in Washington, D.C. resurrected the presumed dead Cole-Bishop Amendment and inexplicably cut the last-minute backroom deal that left vaping products still subject to the industry-killing 2007 predicate date, while exempting premium cigars and pipe tobacco. It's an ignominious blow to the vaping industry, particularly hard felt by the Vapor Technology Association, the lead industry lobby group behind the Cole-Bishop effort. Joining us for an in-depth discussion of these issues is Dimitris Agrafiotis, a.k.a. the Vaping Greek. He's a globally known vaping advocate, executive director of the Tennessee Smoke-Free Association, and host of the Smoke-Free Radio podcast, which you can find at smokefreeradio.com. RegWatch caught up with the Vaping Greek last week, the day after the surprise changes to the Cole-Bishop Amendment.
I started back in 2010 reviewing products on YouTube as soon as I discovered that I could quit smoking with this product. And pretty soon I realized that the governments will be coming after this product simply because it's such a disruptive technology. So I quickly fell into that advocacy role back in 2013 and kind of moved away from doing YouTube reviews and starting to gain knowledge and information on how we're going to combat what was eventually going to happen as we see this happening right now. So I kind of fell into that advocacy role, started to travel all over the world, trying to educate on tobacco harm reduction via the use of personal vaporizers. And today, partly because of my job and partly because of my advocacy role, I try to monitor different situations here in the United States and, of course, globally that could be affecting the options of adults to be able to switch to this product.
Now, when you said that at first there was a disruptive technology, and that was one of the things that keyed you in to why government might want to come down on it. Since then, have you discovered other reasons why government is coming down so hard on vaping?
Well, obviously there's a huge financial economy that has been built by people smoking and dying, and those two words sound very grim, but the reality is that it's a global economy via whether it be nonprofit health groups that have been formed over the years to combat smoking, whether that is taxation that the government on a local, state, or federal level receives via cigarettes, or huge corporate interests that like to manipulate regulations to benefit their shareholders and their bottom line as well too. So it's coming to us from all fronts, and here we are, a small industry that was born out of a consumer solution really to the combustible tobacco addiction, and it's a huge task for us to undertake. But I think that's one of the reasons that really it drew me in to continue to fight. I really enjoy trying to educate people and speaking with people about this product. And if I can change one mind out of the 100, I consider that a win for our industry, given what we're facing, what we're up against.
Would you characterize the economy that has grown around tobacco control? Would you characterize tobacco control as too big to succeed?
I think, yes, obviously they are too large to succeed, but also there's somewhat of a pride factor here. If you look at the own data from the government, we're talking about the CDC here, the disease control that puts out these numbers every year, you're going to see for the last 20, 25 years, tobacco control really didn't do much to curb youth smoking. In fact, numbers continue to grow. Over 440,000 Americans die every year from smoking. So even though we spend billions of dollars every year trying to combat this, it really has not, nothing has really come across to actually help people quit smoking until vaping became very popular here in the United States in 2012 and 2013, when brick and mortar shops started opening up across the nation. Now, what we've seen this year in 2018 is that youth smoking is at an all-time low. And who can take credit for that? It would be very hard for any public health official or any public health group, profit or nonprofit, to admit that here came a product that was once again born by us, the consumers, that actually did something that tobacco control hadn't been able to do for 25, 30 years. And obviously the financial interests, yes, these groups exist because people smoke. And their jobs also exist because people smoke. So more people that are not smoking means less jobs will be available for tobacco control. Lastly, what I want to say is that I cannot fathom how is it possible for anybody to claim that they are looking over the public health as it affects the population as a whole in the United States and deny the drastic harm reduction that electronic cigarettes and vaping can bring to the table. We never claim to be a safe product. We claim to be a much safer product than existing combustible tobacco. And we demand to be on that same list as the available FDA-approved methods, such as NRTs, patches, gums, and various other medications that the FDA approves.
Things have not been going well for the vaping industry in the United States, particular in the last, 2018 has been a horrible year, and particularly these last couple of weeks. How would you characterize what's going on?
Ever since the FDA announced that they are seeking comments on regulating flavors in electronic cigarettes, things have been going very downhill for us, especially, yes, the last couple of weeks. It almost seems like it's an orchestrated attack. Like all these groups that we talked about at the beginning of the interview, when we're talking about big tobacco, we're talking about pharmaceutical and the anti-smoking, now anti-vaping so-called public health groups, and the government itself. It seems like they all have sat down on a table and said, what can we possibly do to bring down this industry? And, between YouTube and Congress and the FDA and various other stuff that has happened in this industry, it has been very, very difficult, especially for me, somebody that people look to for information. I constantly get messages, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? And we just have to take, we just have to step back just for a second, look at what's happening and find out how to combat it. Sometimes when we think that everything is going really, really bad, then something will pop up and it'll renew, our desire to continue to fighting. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to tell everybody to stay positive and let's try to find solutions on how to combat this misinformation, this orchestrated attack, if you want to call it. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but how can you not put two and two together when you're seeing people that, for example, are on YouTube trying to help other people quit smoking and their videos are being flagged and taken down and they're getting strikes? That shows to me that somebody is out there that does not want us to use our methods to help people quit smoking. When you see Congress that has given a pass to premium cigars and pipe tobacco that actually use combustion and are way, way more harmful than vaping, and vaping is excluded from moving the predicate date to a much more modern date that's appropriate for the product. Yeah, of course, it is very, very disheartening. We just have to dissect every piece that's coming towards us and then find a way to combat it.
Let me point out that in the past, you've had a bleaker attitude towards towards the situation. I mean, I wouldn't want to characterize your own position, but it was definitely like we're kind of screwed.
It still is. It still is. I cannot be. One of the reasons why I've always used that is because this is the position we're in. We have to be honest with the industry and the consumers that look to us for information. I can't go to bed at night telling people, don't worry, everything's going to be okay, we've got it handled, because that is not the case. And I do not want to give the impression that whoever's watching this video or whoever's vaping or whoever's in the industry, whether it's a consumer level or a professional level, that everything's going to be okay, because it's not. We have to fight. And the seriousness comes with that we are screwed, because look around us and look what's happening, right? So yes, but having said that, that doesn't mean that I'm going to stop fighting. I'm not going to stop giving guidance. I'm not going to stop suggesting ways that we can combat this global attack that's coming against vaping.
That is heartening to hear. I can tell you that right
Yeah.
now. It always better to have you as a friend than an enemy is my position.
I've been blunt a lot, and I'm going to continue to be blunt because that's the only way that we can get people to understand the reality of the situation. So I'd rather be blunt and sometimes come across harsh than to be what I've seen in the past groups do. Don't worry about it. Continue to give us our money. We're gonna take care of this. We're gonna say vaping, and let people think that, oh, don't worry about it. These people have it handled, because nobody has it handled. Nobody. It's going to take a joint effort from everybody that's in this industry, and especially the consumer. It's something that I've said for years and years and years. A lot of these groups don't want the consumer involved. The consumer is the most important piece of this puzzle if we're going to fight back. So we need to get everybody together on a joint effort and just move into a pathway of, this is how we're going to counterattack what is happening to us.
So you mentioned the consumer, and we were talking about blunt. So let me ask you if you have a blunt message for consumers with regard to the targeting of kids with packaging. It's one thing to ask and demand, and certainly producers, e-juice manufacturers, to change the ways that they're promoting their e-juices, not putting SpongeBob SquarePants on
Sure.
it on a label, and even like all the way down. But at some point, it's the consumer that's actually voting with dollars for those products. And I don't hear anybody being blunt with the consumer on this particular issue.
Absolutely. Look, I'm a believer of the free market. You can purchase whatever you want to, as long as it's legal by law. However, in 2015, I sat across the table from Mitch Zeller at a meeting with the FDA, and Mitch Zeller was very specific when these exact words came out of his mouth. We cannot get past the marketing of these products to look at the true benefits that electronic cigarettes can bring to the population as a whole. This was in 2015. When that meeting was over, I came out and I told everybody in this industry that this is a huge problem with the FDA. Now, fast forward to 2018, we saw FDA warning letters go out to these companies that have used this marketing, childish, appealing marketing for their nicotine products. And now we're seeing a little bit of a shift from the industry as well, too. It's unfortunate that it took the FDA to step in and regulate this industry, and we couldn't do it ourselves. So the consumer, of course, is what drives the industry. The demand, of course, is going to regulate the supply of these products. I want to just clarify a little bit about the warning letters as well, too, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I'll just try to make this as brief as possible. The FDA does not, by law, they cannot by law tell you what to have on your label. They cannot. This has been determined in court last year. So you, the industry, have to self-regulate when it comes to labels on these products that are falling under the Food and Drug Cosmetics Act here in the United States. However, what they can do is say that you're misbranding or adulterating your label. And this is exactly what they did with these products that have taken products that are existing on the market, whether it's a cereal, whether it's a piece of candy or something like that, saying that your product matches very close to these products that are primarily appealing to kids. And I hear this all the time from vapors. Well, I like cereal too. That's true. I like it myself as well too. But Frankenberry generally markets its product Saturday morning at the cartoon slot to kids, right? So this is the determination that you're going to have to make. It's not that we adults don't like cereal. Of course we do. But most of the advertising is primarily towards kids. So when your product matches that, then the FDA can step in with FTC, as they did in many of these letters that they sent out there, and of course ask you to remove your product, or what you're going to reply within 15 days. And if you don't, it might get very, very difficult for you in the future. But when we're talking about the flavor trap and the campaign for tobacco-free kids, there is partially an ideology. There is partially some of our own fault of our own industry. Some of the marketing that we've done is tasteless. If I can't be more vulgar, it's been tasteless, right? So partially some of that, but also think about this. One of the biggest targets for Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids has been Juul. Well, Juul has the most, if not the most, responsible marketing in this industry. Their packaging is very, very plain, very big tobacco-like, with simple 1 or 2 colors and a crest. Their flavors are definitely not child appealing. I mean, if you talk about cucumber or crema or something like that, versus some of the products that we have on the market as well too. So one must wonder, especially with a product with Juul, why would the campaign Tobacco-Free Kids be going after that? The answer to me is clear. they have cut in to the sales of the products that actually generate revenue for these groups. These groups depend on the sale of cigarettes to exist. So if you have a product like Juul that actually is helping adult smokers quit, right? That translates into these people not buying cigarettes anymore or not depending on pharmaceutical treatments, which again, we know a lot of the foundations that are behind Campaign Tobacco Free Kids are pharmaceutical funded. If this product is stopping those two things, then it must be destroyed. And I think that we're seeing that with the Juul. And of course, we're seeing that with other industry led products that have helped consumers quit smoking.
Dimitris, one of the things that you brought up was the Cole Bishop Amendment with the cigars and cigarillos and the predicate date. We're hearing a lot of people from within inside the industry going, what the heck? Is this thing not dead? And then there was some big news yesterday. Why is Cole Bishop not dead? Is Cole Bishop a good thing? What about characterization of favors? And what about substantial equivalency?
Okay, so Cole Bishop for 3 years has been a joint effort between all these newly deemed tobacco products, right? Because it's not just us that are being deemed. We do have cigars, we do have small cigars, we do have pipe tobacco that previously were not under the CTP umbrella of the FDA. Now we're all under that same umbrella. So we're basically OTPs, other tobacco products. So for 3 years, we have joint efforts with the cigars and with the other lobbies out there to move the predicate date. Our last attempt was in the last budget a few months ago. We pushed really, really hard. But once again, like we've seen in the past, is that the vaping industry is a great negotiating tool. So the Democrats basically came out and said, well, we want this. The Republicans said this, we want this. What can we throw under the bus? Well, the vapors, of course. Of course, they're going to throw that. It's an easy negotiating tool. It's exactly what we've been used for the last 3 years. So we got cut out. Cole Bishop did not make it in the budget. Now, all of a sudden, yesterday, there was a meeting, and it was resurrected as part of the new appropriations as they're working on the finance budget. And Cole Bishop resurfaced, but it had an amendment inside. And the amendment said that, yes, we will move the predicate. Everything else stays the same. There's a couple of changes with a substantial equivalency. We will move the predicate date, but only for premium cigars and pipe tobacco. Vapor products are excluded from moving the predicate date. There is a term inside that says you can file substantial equivalency if you pass a PMTA. And if you just tune into my podcast, you'll know it's virtually impossible to get a PMTA for a vapor product. So once again, what we're seeing here with the Cole Bishop Amendment is that the cigar and pipe tobacco lobby has done an excellent job sticking it, to their guns that these products should be moved, the predicate that should be moved, and our industry has been sitting back and not doing enough, whether it's financially or supporting our federal trade groups, getting the word out to our congressmen and the people that represent us, the people that we voted for to represent us. And we're losing the battle once again to some of these other industries that are well more organized and well more funded.
That's astonishing to hear.
It's disgusting. And yes, it is astonishing to hear that a product that actually uses flame, paper, and tobacco can be moved as a predicate date, and a technology product that has the potential to save 1 billion lives over the next 20 years is being treated worse than bringing a new cigarette to the market.
So, Dimitris, from our position here at RegWatch, though I pay a price for doing it, one of the things that we do is try to hold some of the advocacy groups to account.
Sure.
To the best that we can.
Sure, as you should.
Right. So which is the advocacy group that dropped the ball on Cole Bishop?
I'm not quite sure if anybody dropped the ball or if this was just an amendment that they didn't know that was actually being negotiated in the back. This happens all the time, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, it's 3 years that it's been going on. I mean, I would think that we would have some tuned in relationship to at least know that bill was getting resurrected for the fourth time.
Sure. I think that there was an alert a day before the bill came that something was going to happen. I heard it from Gregory Conley. I heard it from Tony Aboud from the Vapor Technology Association. They just did not know exactly what the language is going to look like. This is based on the information that I'm getting, probably the same information that you're going to get as well too. So as we're dissecting it more, yeah, more might show up in the future. And trust me, I'll be the first one over there and to criticize if I see something that's going wrong. But as it stands right now, to me, what it appears that their lobby, meaning the cigar and the pipe tobacco lobby, was better funded and operated in a better fashion than what we have done in the last 3 years.
To pardon the pun, they have more juice in Washington.
Yes, absolutely. They have more juice in Washington. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, this is how law is being made in this country. The lobby and the lobbying efforts of the various corporations and the large special interests are the ones that drive regulations to benefit, of course, their industries. We're not there yet, Brent. This is what the problem is. We're not there yet. And keep in mind, we've only been around technically for 5-6 years as an industry, maybe since 2007, the product that's been in the market. But trying to get organized in 5-6 years, we have to be a little bit more lenient. But now that we know and we see how the game is being played, now is the time, especially for manufacturers, right? Especially for people that have a financial vested interest in this industry, to kind of look at those other groups. Look at big tobacco. Look at the cigar lobby, see what they're doing, even look at our opposition, even look at the American Cancer Society and the Lung Society and the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, see what they're doing. And we have to play that same game. We have to step up and play with the big boys. Now, it's enough of this amateuristic, passionate, yet not effective method that we've been attempting to do in the last 2-3 years. It's time to get serious.
So just to put it to bed, Cole Bishop has to be dead now if just yesterday they carved out tobacco and said, screw you, vaping. There can't be another round where they're going to
No. The amendment cannot happen now. Now we have to monitor and see what this is going to do. Listen, even if Cole Bishop did pass, which, I was always on the fence. Of course, I wanted Cole Bishop to pass to move the predicate date to at least allow some of these vape shops to be able to operate. To me, the vape shop is the most important factor in vaping, and it's the one thing that can help people quit smoking, and I hate to see it go away. So I'm willing to take some of the bad stuff that came with Cole Bishop as long as I can keep that small mom and pops operation in business.
So what is, in your mind, then the strategy? It seems that the Hunter bill is dead and doesn't seem, or nobody else is picking it up to kind of run with it, unless you've heard different.
The Hunter bill was never going to go anywhere from the beginning.
Oh yeah, well I have the bruises for covering that.
That's okay,
yeah, no doubt.
You should ask me.
Oh well. Hey man, I'm a Trump supporter.
So. Hey, listen, I'm a supporter for anybody that can help me live a healthier life, right?
Yeah, for sure. So that aside, then, so Hunter bill's dead, so to speak. Most people do say that. Cole Bishop seems dead. So what is the strategy then? Because legislation does have to change. I guess the FDA could undeem vaping products as a tobacco product.
I don't think that's going to happen. However, I do believe, and since the end of 2017, when all of this was going down, I kind of looked at the situation and understood that the best possible win for us would be to open up a door of communication with the FDA. The FDA will meet with any stakeholder of this industry. My recommendation back at the end of 2017 is let's start making appointments through these various companies and manufacturers and opening up a door of communication with the FDA. Let's explain what the product is, how it's being manufactured, how we sell it, how we distribute it, what our customers are saying. Let's try to educate them on what exactly our industry does, because nobody has so far. So what our hope is that Commissioner Scott Gottlieb will look at this product and understand the continuum of risk, weigh the benefits between, maybe some kids are using these products, but hey, if we can save 440,000 Americans a year, that's a little trade-off that we're going to be able to make and give us what's called an accelerated path to the market, or what they call a fast-track PMTA. This has been used in the past for drugs. For example, when the HIV was widespread here back in the 80s in the United States, a lot of the drug companies came up with various drugs to help HIV patients. So the FDA kind of said, well, we don't have to go through the entire process since this is such a widespread problem. Let's help these drugs get into the market. And, we're just going to monitor and see how people are reacting to it. And then we can make a determination later. Same thing with Ebola a few years ago with that scare. It's never happened for tobacco products, but we're hoping that the commissioner sees that and gives us that fast track PMTA, which basically means instead of the window being completely shut, because it is completely shut now for the PMTA process, it's going to crack it up just enough where we can get a few companies to get their products through and continue to save lives. And if I don't want to compare HIV with smoking, but smoking does kill 440,000 Americans every year. So this is a big problem that the commissioner should really look to vapor products to assist in lowering that number. If not, eventually, maybe not in our lifetime, but eventually eliminating combustible tobacco altogether.
So when we're talking about how to make this thing or how it might get better for vapors, and what you just said sounds like that there is some hope. Others out there, though, they're critical of some of the vaping advocacy groups,
Sure.
and they've asked me to ask you basically, what about the VTA? We hear a lot of grumbling.
Sure. I think anybody that is taking the lead will get some blowback, and none of the groups are perfect. I have been critical of VTA as well, too, on things that I don't agree with. That's simply my personal opinion. I think the people that pay for their membership and continue to have VTA be the federal group that's going to represent us federally, those are the ones that should be really accounting for their actions, right? I think there's a lot of people that do create a lot of chatter that don't even have a vested interest in it as well, too. I think that the direction that the VTA has is great. I think they're doing a wonderful thing with the various state organizations. I just think that what they lack is more unity from the community. If I've always said this, if you want to change something, you need to become part of it to have your voice heard. It's very easy to sit back and criticize until you fall into the fight. And I have gone to the Hill and fought with VTA. I've gone to Washington, D.C. I've gone to various other events with them as well, too. And I think that a lot of people would benefit in stepping their foot in the ring. Yeah, not everything is going to be fine and dandy with any group that is out there. I can say that about every advocacy group that exists, including my own. But I think at the end of the day, what we have to do is look at the reality. The reality is that they're the most professional, they're the most well-funded, they have one of the best lobbies on the Hill. And if we want to influence some change, we should become part of the conversation and not create chatter, especially when you don't have a vested interest in it.
And what about SFATA? Because they kind of got competing portfolios in a sense of
Sure.
working directly with the retailers. Are they playing well in the sandbox together in terms of not competing in states and fighting over a retailer on a corner, or are they fighting over retailers on the corner?
I think there is some competition. I mean, the advocacy dollars are very, very scarce, and every bad thing that happens in this industry causes the industry to tighten up their pocket a little bit more. So obviously, funds today are so much harder to collect than it was 3-4 years ago, where the industry was booming, money was coming in, and there was not that many groups out there. I would love to see a consolidation. I know that sometimes that is a pipe dream, but I would love to see a consolidation into one federal group.
And well, why is it a pipe? Why is it a pipe dream?
It's just simply egos and financial interests, and it's just that the way that the industry has always self-destruct. It's just a matter of people not getting along with each other in the sandbox, and unless that changes, we're never going to have. That's why I'm calling it a pipe dream, because what we've seen in the past that's very, very difficult to change. Now,
so finish that dream for us. You were saying a national kind of organization,
right? So what I would like to see is one group represent us in a federal, right, and represent the big manufacturers, because I do believe that there's two interests here. The vape shop, the mom and pop shop that the husband and wife are working, down in Cummings, Georgia, does not have the same interests as the national manufacturer of e-liquid that sells liquid across the United States into various states. I think those two should be represented differently. You cannot go fight on the Hill, right, saying that I represent this small moms and pop shops and then this large manufacturer as well too. So I would kind of like to see that separated, where we have one big national federal trade representation with a big, strong, powerful lobby in Washington, D.C. And then I would like to see a second representation for some of these mom and pop shops to have a different voice for them, because their interests are completely different. They can't come to the table with a couple $100,000 or even a couple $1 million. They're barely scraping, to pay their bills. And this shouldn't be accounted for, or there shouldn't be holding them in the same regards as we're holding some of these large manufacturers that are frankly not spending a dime on advocacy and spending all their money on Instagram advertising.
How do you corral cats?
Yeah, that's right. Communication is missing. I think one of the problems that vaping has is that we don't listen. We don't listen when somebody else is speaking, especially when we have predetermined our opinion on a subject. I think that the only way that we can save or bring the cats together, as you say, is to actually listen and absorb other opinions. Whether we agree with them or not is irrelevant. What is important here is to be able to listen to what the other person is saying and try to come in some form of communication. We saw that briefly even with Cole Bishop, but all the groups came together. I mean, SFATA and CASA and VTA, everybody was on board with Cole Bishop publicly. And this is what we need to show. We need to show at least to the consumers and to the industry that all of these groups are together. If there are arguments, they should definitely not be out there in the public for people to see. At least give the appearance to the consumers and to the industry that we're working towards the same goal. And I think that's going to benefit in the long run. And let's just try to hash out our differences in the back. Listen, there's been no advocate that I've ever talked to, even people that I've had some serious fights with in the past, that I cannot sit down with and agree at least 75%. So I think that 75% threshold is what we should be aiming for. Can we all sit down and agree 75% of the time? Can we all agree that we want this product to be around for the millions of smokers? Do we all agree that we want to save and keep these products available for the ones that have actually quit smoking with vaping and they can continue to have this affordability and availability of these products? Can we all just sit down and agree that vaping is less harmful than cigarettes? There you go. We've already achieved that 75%. And let's work on the 25% back in the private rooms and try to hash out our differences there and don't lose our focus on the main goal.